Hi everyone! Today we are going to take a close look at Hexes of Sygon, a strategic game that visually reminded us of Catan, so naturally we wanted to see if the gameplay is similar as well. It turns out they share some minor similarities, but the core gameplay is very different between the two games. Throughout the video we'll share our thoughts on Hexes of Sygon, and by the end of this video you'll have all the information you need to see if this may be the next addition to your collection. Before we get into that though, let's take a very quick look at the gameplay. Keep in mind that this is a prototype version of the game, so the components will not be the same as they will be in the final version of it. In Hexes of Sygon, players control groups of 3 wizards each that have arrived in the newly found world of Sygon and start settling the new regions. During the game, the wizards move around the map building towns, workshops, markets and walls to expand their civilization and protect themselves from enemy civilizations and from the raging volcanoes that scorch the surrounding areas. Buildings provide sorcery points, and the goal is having the most sorcery points at the end of the game. The map of the game is modular, and its size depends on the number of players. Apart from the 3 volcanoes, there are 6 types of terrain that provide 6 different types of resources. All areas also have a matching value in gold. Having built on a specific hexagon provides resources and gold over the course of the game. Gold can also be stolen from other players, so protecting yourself from them is important. The resources and gold are used to build the various buildings and expand your civilization. As the game progresses, more buildings are built, more resources and gold are gained, and each player slowly creates an engine that carries them towards victory. Don't forget the volcanoes though. Those also erupt throughout the game, destroying the surrounding areas and potentially diminishing their value or completely scorching them and taking them out of the game forever. The game also comes with spell cards that can be optionally used for an advanced version. The spell cards can be acquired with resources and gold and provide either ongoing benefits or one-time effects that somehow alter the rules of the game. The game ends at the end of the round, during which at least one of the players has reached the required sorcery points. At that stage, whoever has the most sorcery points wins. We usually start our reviews by commenting on the components that are included in the box of the game, but since this one is a prototype, we can't really comment on the final quality or the looks of them. What we have seen so far seems to be working perfectly well, and all the information we needed were readily available to us. We especially like the little spell books that work as player aids for the spell cards, and we found them very useful but also very thematic. The volcanoes also look super cool on the table, and the little smoke clouds that get added on top of them when they erupt are the extra touch that truly sets them apart. What we did find bizarre is that the resources are tracked through cards instead of tokens, and quite big cards as well, because cards tend to take up a lot of table space and extra time to be sorted. Of course, that's one of the elements that's very reminiscent of Catan. Setting up the game is much faster than we initially thought it would be because of the modular map. It turns out it's quite easy to separate the tiles and spread them on the table. Apart from that and separating the resource cards, there isn't much you need to do before starting your game. Technically, placing your first 2 towns and walls is also part of the setup, but it doesn't really feel that way, because you are actively making choices that will affect the whole gameplay. In that sense, emotionally, we don't count that as part of the setup. On the contrary, the duration of the game was a bit longer than we initially expected. While reading the rules, it feels like turns are quite fast and gathering sorcery points is very simple. It turns out those little decisions truly add up, and our 2-player games were always more than 1 hour long. I can only imagine that with more players, the duration will increase even more. To be fair though, it never felt like the game was dragging on for too long. We were always interested and engaged until the very end. Finally, to wrap up the basics, the rules are very simple and easy to explain. While Hexes of Sygon is a civilization game and includes everything that comes with that, it keeps everything in its most basic form, making it very accessible to almost everyone. As a minor complaint, though, we felt that some of the rules were not quite intuitive, and we had to go back and check the rulebook again for some details here and there, which wasn't expected based on the simplicity of the game. It wasn't something major, but we had this nagging feeling that we weren't quite certain about something, and we had to double check just in case, because it didn't feel quite right. We also aren't huge fans of turns that have steps that need to be taken in a very specific order, but that's a matter of personal preference. The rulebook and player aids have room for improvement, but thankfully this is already being taken care of, since, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a prototype and changes are still being made. So now let's get into the juicy stuff. Since I just mentioned the rules, I'll start by saying that Hexes of Sygon is one of those games that requires a few plays to start internalizing the rules and revealing those little strategies that may be missed during the first couple of sessions. In addition to that, if you decide, as we did, to start with the basics and then add the spell cards and the couple of extra actions that are included as optional in the rulebook, it would be unfair to judge the game if you never get to that part. These elements are what truly elevate the game to a totally new level, and while we agree with the concept of starting simple and then adding the extras, if you never get to the extras, you've never seen the actual game. And now that we are on the topic of the spell cards, it's also worth noting that while their effects don't seem very impactful and seem very subtle, if they are timed correctly and are used sparingly and wisely, they can make a huge difference. I think we prefer it that way as well, because we ended up using 2 or 3 of them in each game, so we didn't spend a bunch of resources or gold on them, but we felt that when we used them, it was for a good reason that really paid off. If we're going to be honest, because everyone has access to all of them from the start of the game, at first they can feel a little bit overwhelming. Technically, you have access to 17 spell cards. Each one of them has 2 copies, but that's irrelevant. So you have one of 2 choices. You can either read through all 17 of them from the beginning and know what is available to you, as Spiros did, which in my opinion is a lot of information at once, or did what I did and go in blindly for your first game, only checking them if you have a spare resource or a few extra gold. Both of these approaches can work equally well depending on your personality. Now, as far as variety goes, we are happy to report that Hexes of Sygon has a lot of it. First and foremost, there is the modular board. This by itself is enough to make the map different every time, to force you to start in different locations with different initial resources and gold, which obviously makes it so that you follow a different strategy in every game. The board also adjusts to the player count, and the player count itself also changes how you think about your environment and what your long-term goals might be. Then there is also the positioning of the volcanoes, because those change the map over the course of the game, and you have to take them into consideration when you settle new areas or you decide how to protect yourself from the eruptions. Overall, we found the volcanoes to be very interesting, and it is a mild but very impactful way to change the map over the course of the game, add some unpredictability and a common thread for all players. We also tried different strategies within the game on purpose to see if they could work, and the one we got to test at least seemed to work very well if they were applied correctly. That's something we always enjoy in games. It offers you an option to adjust to your surroundings and follow a different strategy every time without setting you back too much or giving you an unfair advantage based on where you settled your first 2 towns or how the map is created. There are choices and adjustments a player can make, and no one is truly out of the game until the very end. In that regard, we also noticed that our scores were always very close, so every little bit matters and you can never truly be safe until the final score. That's probably the main reason why we always felt engaged, and we could never relax if we were very far ahead or get disappointed if we were very far behind. There is also a mild catch-up mechanism that gives some gold to the players who are behind on the score at the end of each round, but that's also something to consider if you decide to build too fast or expand too much. It's a known fact that if you have more points at the end of the round than the rest of the players, the others will get gold. In that sense, while it is a catch-up mechanism, it also feels like an added layer of strategy and something to keep in mind throughout the game. Finally, it's worth noting that it is a highly interactive game, both directly and indirectly. Indirectly, you always affect others by where you move your wizards and where you build, because once you build in a hex, no one else can build there for the rest of the game. Directly, you have an option to steal gold from others, so there is a minor take that element, but it never feels like a lot. While it was something that we were always considering when we were taking our turns, we cannot destroy other people's pieces, either the wizards or the buildings, and gold is the least important resource within the game, at least in the amount you can steal from others. So the interaction is there, but it's not very punishing. I would dare say that even if you don't like such direct interaction in games, I think it wouldn't be a problem in this game specifically. And I think that's it. We've covered everything we wanted to say about Hexes of Sygon, but of course, if you have any questions or if you think we missed something and you'd like us to comment on it, let us know in the comments below. If you'd like to know more about the game, I'll put links in the description below, so make sure to check those out as well. Remember to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, bye.